Welcome into the Slobberknocker Sports College Football Show. We're here for everything is it week 12 or week 13?
It is week 13,
Week 13.
according to ESPN.
There's 2 weeks left of regular season football before we get to like conference titles and all that stuff. Lots of conference title races. We're going to break down all the major conferences and like who needs to win and all the possible scenarios. We'll start with that. We'll talk a little bit about the college football playoff rankings. We'll get into the big game breakdowns. We have a top 5 matchup on deck this week as Ohio State takes on number 4 undefeated Indiana, even though Ohio State is a 13.5-point favorite now, although it's moving all over the place.
What's the deal with Rourke? Is he for sure playing? Or were people? Did you hear?
That's
Joey?
not real. That Joey Galloway's an idiot.
Okay, that's what
real.
I thought. But he actually said that, right?
He said that they
wasn't
should bench,
AI.
He said that they should bench
him?
their quarterback. They should bench their quarterback.
It might be genius.
It's not genius because
it might be genius. Joey's playing chess. We're playing checkers. Bro.
Joey Galloway, and people are shitting on him. Like nobody likes him, but then like after
he's
that,
genius. I had no idea how he, out of like all the people, he's at ESPN, right? Have kept his job. I know he's been there a long time, but he's like. Maybe he's just like, no, I'll do it for, like, you know, way cheaper than anybody else. I don't know.
Well, honestly, if you think about it, like, that whole college football crew is really not good. It's Greg McElroy.
He was almost a Rhodes Scholar, okay? Show some respect.
The guy's an idiot. Greg McElroy.
Oh, my gosh.
They've got Booger McFarland and Joey Galloway. Like, it's just the clown show. It's the Three Stooges.
I'm not getting into it, Booger.
It's bad. Yeah, Booger's real bad.
Booger would kick my ass.
Booger's real bad. His fucked up, pinkies out to the left side. He's doing the T-Rex to permanently.
That's called hard work and dedication, brother, all right?
All right, here's where we're going to start.
Okay.
We don't have TV in here, so I'm going to read you off some of these scenarios. We'll kind of follow along, and I want to talk through this. We're going to go through each of the conferences, and we're going to talk through like scenarios for who goes, who you think is going to go, and how this plays out. So let's start with the SEC, the top conference, the best conference in the country, no matter what anyone wants to say. So the top of this is simple, right? So if A&M and Texas both win this week,
yep.
A&M plays at Auburn. They are only a 2.5-point favorite. Texas is a 21-point favorite at home against Kentucky. It was funny,
yeah. People were talking about just actual analysts too. Were talking about the Auburn game like it was a formality. And while we're going to get into it, I do think Texas A&M is going to win the game only because Auburn's offense is so bad. That's the only reason. But they were like talking about this game like it was a formality. And even funny enough, Elko fucked up his press conference. Did you see that? We're only thinking about Texas.
I mean Auburn.
Hey, I mean Auburn.
Auburn. He was trying like we're not focused on anything but Texas. But
it's a bad spot for Texas A&M
horrible spot.
Auburn, it's senior night, senior day. Obviously, they play Ole Miss, which is their Super Bowl next. But it's like if they win 2 in a row, they're bowl eligible. Which I don't think they will. But it's a big game for them, and A&M is just all they're thinking about is Texas. Let me ask you this: if A&M, and we're going to go through the scenarios, but just this one. If A&M loses to Auburn but beats Texas, are they in or no?
No. So I'll get to that one in a second.
Yeah, we'll get into it in a second. I just didn't know.
Well, no, they're not. Well, there is a way, but it's
small
even.
Percentage,
I won't even discuss how it happens.
Yeah,
so
it's so crazy.
So I will say, okay. So we'll go back real quick and we'll come back to all of this. I think A&M is going to lose to Auburn this week. By the way, shocker.
They certainly.
There's a reason that line. I'm not saying they're going to win, but there's a reason that line is 2.5 and not 3. If professional bettors liked A&M in that spot, that would be at 3 right now. Meaning there's not a lot of love for A&M.
No, I get that, but I would say that Vegas and professional bettors have given Auburn way too much respect this year, and that showed. Look at the Vanderbilt game. How many points were they favored by in that game?
No, I completely agree. They've gotten too much credit.
It's a horrible spot for A&M. They could easily lose.
What I'm saying is professional bettors in this spot are not backing A&M.
No, but they were all over Auburn against Vanderbilt, too. That's my point. Yeah.
I agree, but that was weeks ago, and I do think Auburn has played a lot of games close that they lost. The game at home against Georgia was a 4-point game, and they got a goal line stand, and it went to review, and they were in that game. Like
Auburn has a really good defense.
They're not horrific.
A really good defense.
And the games at night.
Offense sucks.
And the games at night at Jordan-Hare Stadium, like I said, it's senior night. So let's go back to SEC scenario. All right, so Texas and Texas A&M, they're atop the SEC standings right now. Okay, they're the only 2 teams in the SEC with 1 conference loss. If Either team is assuming they both win. Let's just say for scenario 1, Texas and Texas A&M both win this week. Okay, if that happens, the winner of A&M Texas is a de facto game to go to the SEC title game. So they would then play more than likely, I would say 95%. The winner of Texas and Texas A&M would play Alabama in the SEC title game, assuming Alabama wins their last 2 games. They play against Auburn the last game on the they play Oklahoma on the road this week and then home against Auburn the final week. So if Alabama wins their 2 games, that's the simplest scenario, right? Like Alabama's going to be favored pretty sizably in both those games. And assuming they win those 2, and Texas and A&M both win, the winners of that game will play. The winner of that game will play Alabama. Now, there is one scenario where Alabama does not get in if they do win out, and I'm going to list it here just because it's a weird scenario. If Texas wins out, obviously Texas would be in. Missouri has to lose out. They have to lose at Mississippi State, at Arkansas, and Tennessee has to beat Vandy the last game.
And that's for who to go?
That would make Georgia versus Texas as opposed to Texas or Texas A&M versus Alabama. Okay? Now, that's actually the simplest scenario, right? Like, that's the simplest scenario. Now, here's scenario number 2, and this is if crazy shit happens and all shit hits the fan, right? A&M loses to Auburn this week, okay? Very possible.
Yeah.
Right? 2.5-point spread. Texas beats Kentucky. Next week, A&M upsets Texas. And then Alabama, Georgia, Ole Miss, and Tennessee all win out, which is very possible. None of them play each other. In that case, we would have a 6-way tie. Everybody's 6-2. And I believe I tried to look it through there. I couldn't find like exactly who would go, but my anticipation based on what I looked at shows that I believe in that scenario, it would be Alabama versus Georgia for the SEC title game. Okay. So that's the scenario there. Question here, and we'll get into the game breakdowns here. Do you think this gets crazy? Do you think A&M is going to beat Texas the last game? You think A&M will win that game in Kyle?
I just think it'll be a close game. I would give an edge to Texas just because they're a more talented team. But, I mean, it's a rivalry game. We know anything can happen. It's probably going to be at night at Kyle.
It is at night. It's 6:30 kickoff.
Okay, yeah.
They just announced it.
I figured, yeah. Just an extremely tough game. We remember how the last one ended with a Justin Tucker walk-off at Kyle Field. So, I mean, they've been chomping at the bits to play that game again for how many years?
14, I'm guessing. I don't remember.
I don't know.
I think it was 09. Was it 09? I think it was,
that sounds
right.
about right.
I think it was 09.
Yeah.
It might have been 10.
Yeah.
It's been 14, 15 years.
Yeah. So
right?
they've been chomping at the bit to play that again.
The early point spread for Texas and Texas A&M.
Texas by 4?
Texas by 7.5.
Really?
Mm-hmm. That's what I thought it was going to be 8. Now look.
It's not. I don't think it's going to close that.
Well, it probably will not close that.
No.
It probably will
if
not close
A&M
that. I don't
wins,
think
if A&M wins this week, I think it'll get. Would you say the opening line was?
The look ahead is 7.5. Now that doesn't mean I didn't reopen at a lower number, but the look ahead right now, currently you can bet at. Well, no, it's the same thing because you could go to FanDuel right now and bet A&M plus 7.5. So they're offering 7.5.
Interesting.
Now,
I'd be shocked if both of them won this week. I would be surprised if it was more. I would just be. I think it's never going to be 7.5. Like game day kick, I think it could be 7.
I think 7 is where it will close.
6.5 to 7.
I think the hook will be gone. I agree with you on that.
Yeah,
and look, I'm not saying I would back Texas in that spot even at 7, but just from a pure standpoint of looking at the two teams on paper, if you take out the fact that it's a rivalry game, I think that number is 8. And I think the quarterback aside, if Texas has Arch Manning in the game and he's played all year, that line could be 9 or 10. Now. So you think Texas wins, but it's going to be a close game. So that's the scenario for the SEC. We'll move on now from the SEC. A lot of stuff could still happen. We'll have a better idea of what we are looking for next week based on the outcome here, right? If A&M and Texas both win, things get a lot simpler, especially if Missouri wins this week, which they should. We know, okay, Alabama just has to win and they're in, and then the winner of Texas and Texas A&M plays Alabama. That's going to be simple. Funny because I don't think Alabama or A&M are even top 3 teams in the SEC, and there's a chance they play for the SEC title. Decent shot.
Portnoy apparently, I just saw here, they put $100,000 on Bama to win it all.
Did he really?
Yeah,
there's no shot.
11-1.
There's a 0 shot. I won't say zero because everybody's bad. Their defense is just so subpar. It would shock me. They haven't beaten anybody since they lost their 2 games. Who have they beaten?
I don't think they're going to win it.
And but that said, I can't tell you who the favorite is right now. I don't know.
That's probably why I did it, just because it was 11-1.
I just
figures that the defense can play a little bit better, but who knows? I don't think they're going to
Milroe can't throw still. Anyway, all right. So that's the SEC race right there. We'll come back to that a little bit as we're talking through some of these games. Let's go to the Big 12. All right, we're going to look at the top 4 here. BYU and Colorado are each 6-1 top the standings, and then you have Arizona State 5-2 and Iowa State 5-2. Everybody below that is 4-3. There's a Baylor, K-State, TCU, Tech, and West Virginia at 4-3. All right, BYU, Arizona State, and Colorado all control their own destiny because BYU is traveling to Tempe to take on Arizona State this week. So the winner of that game, whoever wins Arizona State BYU, will control their own destiny, the final game to go to the college football playoff. Colorado controls their own destiny. They have a massive game this week at Kansas, which is not being played in the normal Kansas stadium. It'll be at Arrowhead, the Chiefs Stadium. And then Iowa State, who sits 5-2, needs some help. So here are the kind of the scenarios, and here's the Big 12 schedule. So let's see. So this week, BYU at Arizona State. Arizona State's a 3-point favorite. Colorado at Kansas. Colorado is moving between a 2.5 and a 3-point favorite. It's been fluid. Iowa State at Utah. Iowa State is a 7.5-point favorite. That's this week. Next week, the final week, Arizona State at Arizona. BYU plays Houston. Colorado plays Oklahoma State. And Iowa State plays Kansas State. Okay, I would say of those 4, the only one that legitimately, Big 12 is so weird you don't know, but Iowa State, Kansas State seems like the most toss-up of a game of those 4. Okay, so here's the simplest path, right? Colorado wins out, and then the winner of Arizona State BYU wins their final game. And again, the final game, if Arizona State beats BYU, they would play Arizona. More than likely, they're going to win. Now, that game would be in Arizona. And then BYU, if they were to win, they get Houston at home. You would think they take care of business. So more than likely, you think the winner of that game this week will probably take 1 spot. More than likely. Okay. So then it's going to come down to Colorado, and Colorado needs to win this week. Now, there is a scenario where Colorado gets in despite losing this week. It's unlikely, but it's possible. It's not like crazy. Because I was trying to look, and I honestly don't know. If BYU and Colorado tie, I don't know who wins the tiebreaker. I did the math, and I went down the tiebreakers, and I got to a coin flip. Now, I might have missed something, but they have the exact same opponent
in the head-to-head doesn't matter.
They didn't play head-to-head. So
BYU and Colorado didn't.
No, they didn't play head-to-head, and the next one would have been the result against the best common opponent. They both beat Baylor because Colorado won on that Hail Mary.
Wouldn't it be? I thought at the end of all of it, it's just whoever's ranked higher in the college football playoff standings goes.
Not it varies by conference. So this one, that's not the case. Oh,
that's not the case. Okay, yeah,
nope.
I thought that was the deal.
So
after you go through all the tiebreakers, I'm saying obviously.
Yeah, maybe that is. I saw coin toss. It should be that. It makes no sense. You would go to coin toss before that. Regardless, okay. So if Colorado loses this week, then Iowa State would then control its own destiny. Okay, so that's the simplest too. Colorado loses, well, then the winner of Arizona State BYU has a shot. We have a scenario where we could be in a 3-way tie, right? Colorado loses, BYU loses, BYU Arizona State loses. We could get a 4-way tie. The winner of that game loses the last game. Let's say Arizona State beats BYU, okay, and then wins their last game. They're 6-2 at that point. BYU loses twice with a loss to Arizona State, wins the last week. They have 2 losses. Colorado loses to Kansas and then beats Okie State. They have 2 losses, and Iowa State wins out. They have 2. Again, crazy scenario. I guess
Mike Gundy's ready to go.
Is he going to beat them?
Colorado.
Are they going to beat Colorado? Say it here on the show.
Are they going to beat Colorado?
Do it.
Sure.
They're
going to beat them. They're not going to go winless in the conference. That's crazy. They're that bad. I don't get
nuts.
it. 0-7 doesn't make any sense.
I think they are
on paper, they're not that bad.
I think Utah and Okie State were picked to finish 1-2.
Yeah, them and Colorado State 1-2-3. Yeah, I mean all right next to each other.
You mean Kansas State?
Kansas State.
Yeah. So who do you think? We'll get to the picks in a second here. Who do you think gets in from the Big 12? If you had to pick it right now, who would be the 2 teams you believe have the most likely chance to make it?
I'll say BYU and I think Iowa State. I think Iowa State wins their last. Let's see. Yeah, well,
They have the toughest schedule is the
yeah,
problem.
I mean, I think they beat Utah at Utah. I mean, they look pretty bad with Wilson back there, and then at home against K-State, I think they'll beat K-State. I think they get in. I think we'll see. Colorado and Kansas, I think, could go either way this week. Kansas is playing much better football, so
Playing much better football. I do think, and we'll get to this, I think Kansas is going to beat Colorado this week. I just worry that Iowa State drops one, and if they do, and it comes down to BYU and Colorado, I don't know who wins that tiebreaker, and then Colorado could still get in. Although, if they get in with 3 losses, I won't be as upset because it's like, oh, they don't really deserve to be in. They just won a shitty conference, which is the case anyway. But 2 losses, you're going to have people like falling out of their cars.
Colorado might be a team of destiny after Dion had Miss Peggy on his presser.
What would the
100
line,
years old.
Okay, what would the line be? Because if they win the Big 12, more than likely they'll be the 12th seed, which means they will not get a bye, and they will play the number 1 at-large team, which would most likely at this point be Georgia or Texas. What would the line in Athens, Georgia, Colorado be?
Interesting. I don't know. They keep
24 and a half.
Respecting Colorado. Is that what you think
That's
it would
my
be?
guess.
They would. That may be what.
17?
Yeah, I would say like 17 and a half because the public is going to bet Colorado.
That's the only reason I would say it would be lower than 21. Is
I think
they know they're going to take money on Colorado, right?
Yeah.
But I have a feeling that line would be just crazy, like ridiculous.
I mean, at the beginning of the year, it probably would have been 24 for sure.
It definitely would. It might have been 30.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to move on. Big Ten. This one's simpler, right? Only 4 teams. Penn State, Oregon, Ohio State, Indiana. All right? 1 spot's already taken. Oregon is already locked in. They can finish no worse than second in the Big Ten. They've taken a spot regardless. All right? Spot 2 is up for grabs. We know Indiana is traveling to Ohio State to take on the Buckeyes this week. If Indiana wins this week, no matter what happens at the end, the final week, Indiana's in. So if Indiana wins, they are in no matter if they win or lose to Purdue. If they lose and Ohio State wins, then Ohio State must win the last game as well to get in. So if Ohio State beats Indiana, they currently would hold on to the second spot, but then they would also have to win their final game, which would be home game against Michigan, which they should win. But the reason I say that is because Penn State technically sits back there, and if Ohio State were to beat Indiana and then lose to Michigan, they would actually have 2 Big Ten losses. Penn State would be sitting there with 1 Big Ten loss, and they would go over Ohio State. Who do you think goes?
That's Michigan fantasy. Michigan and Penn State fantasy land. Michigan is not going to beat Ohio
No, I
State.
don't think so either. But
obviously.
That's the only scenario where the winner of that game doesn't go.
Who goes to the deal?
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
who plays Oregon?
Ohio State and Oregon.
You don't think Indiana? Does Indiana? We'll go to that game in a second. You think they have any shot in the world to beat Ohio State this week?
I think they have a shot, but I would put it like at 20%, like a 1-5.
Sure.
Catch a flyer and play a really good game.
Sure.
Because Ohio State has looked shaky at times.
I know I've asked you this before. If Indiana loses, does it? Okay, I'll take this. I'll rephrase this. Does it matter?
Ryan Russillo was going off on that this week. Did you see that?
Yeah.
He's like, he's just losing his mind. And I was like, he's like, the committee shouldn't care about that. And I was like, well, but basically,
they do care about that.
I mean, no one know. Like, I get where they put it
matters. Do you think it matters?
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt. Do you think it matters how Indiana loses this game? Okay, let's assume they lose. Does it matter how they lose?
Yeah. If they get beat by 35, yeah, it matters.
Then they're out.
Probably.
You'd say they're more likely out if they lose by 35.
Yeah. If they lose by, this is they play like the weakest conference or the weakest schedule in the country, one of the weakest. And if this is the game, and they lose to Ohio State by 35, and you have a bunch of 2-loss SEC teams, the 2-loss SEC teams are going over Indiana.
Sure.
If Indiana plays a close game, I think they get in.
Is there here's my thing with it, and I agree with you. Like, I think there's
I think it matters.
I think it absolutely matters. And I guess what I'm asking you is it's hard to determine what's the point of no return, right? Like, Do they have to lose by 28? Do they have to look a certain way, right? Like, do they have to get manhandled? How do they have to look to get in? Because it's interesting from the perspective of, like, if I'm Indiana, and Kirk Cignetti won't coach like this anyway, but it's like, if I can just, like, shorten this game and keep this to, like, a 14-point loss, we're probably going to make the playoff regard. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, do we try to win this game and risk getting our doors blown off, or do we just try to keep this as close as we can and shorten the game? It's an interesting question.
Yeah, I mean, I think the debate, I mean, when you look at it, because here's my question. So if you look at, and I know that they would, but say they lose by 7, right?
Right.
Say they lose by 7.
Sure.
I mean, obviously, I still think they get in, but, like, what makes Penn State's resume better than theirs? I mean, Penn State hadn't played anybody either.
I don't think they should be there.
Yeah, no. I mean, that's what I'm saying, though. Just looking at Penn State, like, they lost a game. Yeah, a lot of people could say they should have won it at home. Should have, would have, could have. They always do that. And, I mean, I get that I guess the issue is now that they just they beat the hell out of Washington. Obviously, Purdue's horrible. If they do beat Minnesota, which you said that you do think, I don't know if you said that on air.
I think Minnesota has a legit chance to beat Penn State this week.
Penn State will be, so that's going to be real interesting, too. If they lose to Minnesota, I think they're out.
Yeah, like, here's the other thing. It's funny, right? Like, okay, I think Indiana.
But there's going to be they're going to put 3 Big Ten teams in. In my opinion. They will. There's no way. Obviously,
4?
if it could happen.
Okay.
It could happen. But I think they get 4 in if Indiana just doesn't get the doors blown off them. But if Indiana does lose by 28, 35, whatever, and they just get smoked, then I just don't know how they get in over, like, these SEC teams that played far, far harder games.
I have no problem if they get beat by 30, leaving them out.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I don't. I really don't. I hope that they don't. It's a good story, and I hope that they beat Ohio State. I really do. I think they're going to get rolled, and I think this is going to become a discussion. It's more than, like, that's just what I think is going to happen. I think hat for hat, the talent difference is going to really be apparent. It's just such a step up in class. Who's the best team they've beaten, right? Like, Michigan last week by 5 at home. They rolled Nebraska. Congratulations, right? Like, they have the 106th ranked strength of schedule in the country out of 132 FBS teams. Okay, it's horrific who they've played. Not a soul. So I agree with you. They're probably out if they get rolled and get embarrassed.
Yeah, they didn't even play. Yeah,
their non-conference is a joke.
They didn't even play Illinois or Minnesota either.
No.
So
they didn't even play, like, the middle bad Big Ten teams. It is going to be interesting, though. Again, and we can move on from the Big Ten here. But if Indiana loses this game, obviously, if, like, let's say they lose an overtime game by 3, and, you know, they'll be in the playoff at that point. However, it's going to be interesting to see how the committee handles that, because they've had Penn State 4 for a long time. And where's Penn State right now? Where are they ranked?
It's Oregon 1, Ohio State 2, Penn State 4, and Indiana 5.
Right, and Texas is 3, right?
Yes. They have to be, but I'm just looking at the Big Ten.
No.
Yeah.
So my point being, you said Indiana's 5, right?
Yeah.
So here's the funny thing: if Indiana's undefeated, they're behind Penn State. But if Indiana loses at Ohio State, like in an overtime game by 3, and plays them much better on the road than Penn State played them, and that's each of the team's only loss, how do you reconcile? Like, really, that kind of would prove, not wholeheartedly, but, like, that Indiana's just as good, if not better, than Penn State.
Yeah, I don't know
it's
how
going to be weird how they handle that. Like, how much do you drop Indiana at that point then?
Yeah, I have no idea how they're going to handle it. And I would assume that Indiana, I have no idea. That's the question. Indiana, their schedule is worse than Penn State's after looking at it. And it's not, like, by leaps and bounds, but it's definitely worse. And they've been high on Penn State, and most people that watched that game against Ohio State, like you said, that corner interception that could have been a touchdown. Like I said, shoulda, woulda, coulda. But, they had every chance to win that game against Ohio State and didn't. So I have a hard time thinking that even with a close loss, they have them ahead of Penn State, but they might.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I think they have said, basically by saying this, by losing this game, they're going to end up being behind them. But I would argue if they play them that close on the road, that they should.
That's
be
why
ahead
I
of
kind of mentioned it, because, like, I don't know what separates Penn State mightily from Indiana.
The only thing you would argue is that the non-conference for Indiana was FIU, Western Illinois, and Charlotte. Those were the non-conference games.
Yeah.
And Penn State didn't play great teams, but they played West Virginia on the road game 1, right? Like they at least have one Power 5 conference team or Power 4 conference team. But I mean, look, we'll move on. But they barely beat Bowling Green at home earlier this year, right? Like they're not impressive at all. And like I said, I think
Bowling
they have
Green's
a good
playing great ball out
Bowling
of the
Green
back
can
right
sling
now.
it. Harold Fannin Jr. leading the country in yards per reception. Remember that name, boys and girls. All right.
He'll get drafted in the second round and be out of the league in 3 years.
You know, he'll be getting drafted by the Cowboys too.
Sky Moore.
Okay. We'll move on. Let's go to the ACC, last Power 5 conference. All right, so there's only 3 teams in contention here. We have SMU, Miami, and Clemson in that order, okay? SMU is 6-0. Miami is 5-1. Clemson is actually 7-1. They are finished playing ACC games. So they have finished 7-1. They play the Citadel this week, and then they play
Georgia Tech.
South Carolina the final week.
Yeah.
So Clemson done. They're 7-1. They're sitting third. All right, Miami's 5-1. SMU is 6-0. Both of them control their own destiny. Now, SMU, their path is both paths are simple, but SMU is easier because all they have to do is win one of the next 2 games. So if they win at Virginia this week, they're in. Okay? If they lose that game, there's one scenario where they lose that game and beat Cal, but I'm not going to mention it. So just for sake of argument, if they beat either Virginia on the road this week, they're a 10-point favorite, or they win at home against Cal the final week, SMU's in the ACC title game.
They're going to win one of those.
They're going to win one of those. More than likely, they're going to win this week. I know Virginia got rolled by Notre Dame last week. Miami, they finished the season versus Wake Forest at Syracuse. Okay? They have to win both to get in. If they lose either of those games, they would be out, and that would put Clemson in the ACC title game. So Miami must win both games. Versus Wake Forest shouldn't be a problem. At Syracuse, I don't know what the line on that game would be, probably 10-14. They don't give Miami a ton of respect because of that defense, but I would be shocked to see that under double digits. So Miami should win in both. I think we kind of both. I mean, it's pretty simple here. Barring upset, Miami's going to play SMU here in the ACC title game. My question to you is this: if SMU and Miami both go into the SEC title game 11-1, does the loser get into the playoff? Because based on the rankings right now, I would say no. I would have said yes, but based on how they're ranked, SMU is the last team out, or the first team out, I think. And then you had Miami, 9th? And then you just tack on another
loss? I think
loss?
if Miami lost a close game, they'd put them in. I don't think they're going to put SMU in. I think SMU would have to win.
So you'd put Miami. You think they would put a 2-loss, even though it would be in the SEC title game?
Yeah,
they'd
because
put them
like I said,
over a 2-loss Bama, Georgia, Texas A&M, who didn't win an SEC title.
I just don't know how you get penalized for playing in the championship.
I agree with
game.
you.
I just don't think you can. I think that has to be. They have to say, the committee has to put something out saying hey, look, if you play in the conference championship game, you're graded. If you win, you're in. If you don't win, you're graded on your resume before. You can't get penalized for playing in that game. You just can't. It just doesn't make any sense.
No. I 100% agree with you.
And then you have Clemson sitting there. I don't think they're getting in, but I'm just saying, if Clemson only had 1 loss, right? And it's because they have 2 losses, correct?
Right.
So if they had 1 loss and they're just sitting there, in my opinion, there's no way I could put a Clemson team in over a team, who just lost in the, whatever.
No, I hear what you're saying.
I just doesn't make any sense to
There's
me.
just, I guess maybe.
And the old 4-team playoff, I get how it would happen sometimes. If you were the only team that was ever getting 2 in, right, was going to be the SEC. So it just, didn't work. But now you can't penalize teams for playing in the championship. That's just my opinion.
It's hard because, no, I hear what you're saying, and I do agree with you. I fully do. My only pushback to that would be a scenario, the scenarios with Miami and with Texas A&M are so interesting to me because, to me, both those teams, if they got to an SEC title game, would be a borderline playoff team right there, right? And it's a win in the conference championship game. Even if it wasn't an auto bid, it would push them. That resume builder would push them over. but a normal loss to that team, if you have 2 losses, would push you out, or 1 loss for Miami would push you out. I'm not saying, obviously, no other teams are playing that game, so it's not logical to think that way. I'm just saying it's hard for me when I see a team that's on the bubble and you're like trying to differentiate, like, for example, A&M. I'm trying to differentiate them if they have 2 losses from Texas, from Ole Miss, from Georgia.
Got it.
And then they lose that game or get killed in that game, and it's like, how do I throw that out of my mind? And I'm not saying that that's right. I'm just saying that's kind of the only thought process I could think of that possibly you would weight that as a negative.
That's human nature to do, and that will happen somewhat. But like Miami, like you said, right, they're 9th right now. So say they win and get in, it's like, okay, well, we have them 9th. We're not penalizing them for losing this game. It's an extra game. They're getting in. A&M's different because they're like, 13 or 14, right? So that's completely different in my mind. But then you're just getting graded. It doesn't matter that you went to the conference championship game. You have a chance to win it, but then you're just getting graded against your peers that also have 2 losses.
Agreed.
And they wouldn't get in.
Agreed.
Yeah, so that's just, I mean, they're going to have to figure that out. But
I
would be really surprised to see someone lose a conference championship game and be like, yeah, we didn't put them in. Like Miami, say they're at 9. They lose, let's just say they lose by 7 to SMU, whatever. Lose by 7 to SMU. I don't think the committee is going to say, oh, they're out now. I think that those days are gone. I mean, you just can't penalize a team for playing in the...
I think you're right, and I actually hope they do that because I think that's the right thing to do.
But human nature, you're right. If someone loses by 35,
right,
they'll be like, okay, well, clearly they're not a playoff team, and that's a different issue entirely. If that does happen, I'm not saying it's right, but that kind of stuff will happen.
And again, that's the problem.
If it's a competitive championship game,
right,
which really shouldn't matter either. But I'm just saying.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
so if we're gonna say that's the problem with this is like they don't have any criteria saying this does or doesn't matter. And it's like, okay, well then I'm playing this game with the possibility, yes, there's a possibility of winning it and getting a bye or whatever, but now you're saying like, okay, yeah, we're not going to be penalized unless you lose by like 28. Then how do you, like, it's just like and that's why Lane Kiffin came out this week and said, basically, like, there's a lot of coaches he's talked to who don't want to play in the SEC title game because they all have 2 losses, and it's like, we don't want to be penalized for that, and we both agree on this, but we don't know what they're going to do. They might see Miami lose and be like, you know what? It's just too hard to leave a 2-loss SEC team out over at now a 2-loss Miami team, even though they had 1 loss before the conference title game.
And not to mention, I mean, listen, you do want to win the SEC, obviously. You do want the bye, but then you're just getting the shit beat out of you in another SEC game.
Exactly.
So it's like, I get why coaches behind closed doors are like, hey, let's just sneak in and let's play... let's play Miami,
Boise State or Miami or Colorado.
Let's play Indiana and just not have to play another SEC game, right?
And most of those SEC teams, with the exception of probably Tennessee, are going to host a playoff game. So, going to be very interesting. Quickly, I want to go through these just quickly. A couple of the lower level conferences. We won't spend as much time on them. Mountain West, Boise State is 6-0. They basically are locked in. They still have to go and beat Wyoming in Laramie this week to make sure they host the game because this is not a neutral location, right? The winner of the conference hosts the championship game.
Yeah.
So Boise's going to play at Wyoming this week. If Boise State, who is 6-0 in the Mountain West, wins that game, they will then host the Mountain West championship game. Even if they lose, there's a way they still host it, but they're in. Okay, because they beat UNLV head-to-head already, and UNLV's in 3rd. UNLV is 4-1, Colorado State 5-0, Boise State 6-0. Now, we talked about this off air. I didn't even know Colorado State was 5-0 until I looked at the standings. But Colorado State has to play at Fresno State this week. If they win that game as 3-point underdogs, they are very, very likely going to play Boise State. If they lose, unless UNLV slips up, they're going to play Boise State. And UNLV and Boise already played a very closely contested game down in Las Vegas earlier this year. The remaining schedule for Colorado State exactly at Fresno State this week, 3-point underdog, versus Utah State the final week, as they'll be a big favorite. UNLV's final 2 games will be at San Jose State as a 7-point favorite this week, and then against Nevada at home the final week. They'll probably be 14 to 20-point favorite against Nevada. Does it matter who Boise State plays here? That's the only question I'll ask you from this conference. Does it matter who Boise State plays?
I think they'll beat them, but it could be a close game. I mean, Boise, we saw against San Jose State the game. I know they won by 21, but the game was tied with like 8 minutes left, right? Yeah. You mentioned that. It was on a bad beat. So, I mean, if they play UNLV in that championship game, it could end up being a close game.
Yeah.
They're just going to put 8 guys in the box and say, all right, we'll just throw it and we'll see how it goes.
Yeah.
And, you have bad weather or whatever in Boise. I mean, it could be snowing. Anything could be going on. So I would expect them to win those games and the conference championship, but I wouldn't say it's a foregone conclusion at all.
Would you rather play
that dominant?
Would you rather play Colorado State or UNLV? You've already played UNLV. You beat them on their home.
I'd rather play Colorado
Me too.
State. I know they're playing better, but Colorado State.
I'd way rather play Colorado State. And then last
UNLV's
question.
UNLV's defense is actually okay.
No, they are.
I mean, they're better than from what I've seen anyway. And listen, I haven't seen Colorado State play in a while. They were horrible early, and now they've gotten hot. So
no,
I don't know what the actual numbers are, but I would much rather play Colorado State.
I completely agree. Like, you look at the schedule, and most of the teams, like, they beat since their last loss. Like, they lost at Oregon State, which wasn't a conference game. Then they went on a 5-game winning streak. They beat San Jose State by 7, Air Force by 8, New Mexico by 9, Nevada and Wyoming by 2 scores each. So it's not like they're blowing teams out of the water here. I agree. Last question, and I already probably asked you too many. Do you think these smaller conferences should play in neutral locations, or do you like the home and home?
No, you play at home.
Okay,
yeah.
just
for sure.
Okay,
for sure, home because you're not
advantage.
It's an advantage. First of all, secondly, it's like you're not making. I mean,
you're not making enough money.
You might have 10,000 diehard fans from each school, maybe come to that, right? The Mountain West is a little bit bigger in the sense that, like, if they wanted to host it in Vegas, they could. But no, I say you just stick with the best team hosting.
Gotcha.
And you get that advantage in that game.
Okay. American Championship is already set. We know it's going to be Army-Tulane, so that one's already good to go.
Tulane's a pretty good football team.
They are a good football team. Their 2 losses this year are to, I believe, both Power 5 teams. I know they lost to Oklahoma.
If they played Oklahoma right now, I think they'd beat Oklahoma.
They absolutely would. And that game was tied in the fourth quarter.
They've gotten a lot better.
They've gotten better, and Oklahoma's gotten worse. And then they lost. The other game they lost was by 7 to Kansas State. Both those teams were ranked at the time in the top 20.
Yeah, and Oklahoma now realizes, like, back when they played them, they thought they were still Oklahoma and like they were good.
Did. Yeah.
And now they realize, no, we're not Oklahoma.
Which
we're not
matters.
good.
Which matters.
It definitely matters.
It matters.
So,
we've talked about this before.
Yeah.
And it'll be. We'll talk about Army Notre Dame here in a minute in the big game breakdown, but that's going to be an interesting game. We saw what happened with Navy when they stepped up in class with Notre Dame, but Army's already Army. If they do beat Notre Dame, all of a sudden that conference championship game could have college football playoff implications. All of a sudden,
yeah.
Okay. Also, Tulane, weirdly enough, actually isn't out of the college football playoff picture either, because if they do beat Army in this championship game and Boise State were to lose, then they would be the highest-ranked 5th conference champion, and they would get the 12th seed, which would actually then bump the Big 12 champion probably back up to the 4 seed, which is crazy.
Yeah, for sure.
All these moving parts with how this bracket goes, right? Because it's the 4 highest conference-ranked champions, and then the 5th
Boise
gets the 12.
State wins out, I think they hold it, and if not, obviously,
it'll be the winner of that game. Yeah. Okay. Conference USA, last one. We're going to talk about this one because we know we've got a lot of supporters down at Sam Houston State.
Bearcats.
Yep, Bearcats. We're rooting for them. So there's 4 teams. This is actually the weirdest, most interesting, but craziest finish because there's 4 teams in contention. Jacksonville State 6-0 in the conference. Western Kentucky 5-1. Sam Houston State 5-1. Liberty 4-2. And yet somehow they all control their own destiny with 2 games left. How is that possible, you may ask? Because they all play each other the last 2 weeks, right? And so it's going to come down to basically everybody just has to win 2 games and they're in. I mean, that's purely plain and simple. Now, Jacksonville State has the easiest road. They just have to win once. If they win once, they are in, right? And if they lose, if they win, this is why this week is so important, okay? So if Jacksonville State beats Sam Houston State, they're playing Sam Houston State this week. It's at home in Jacksonville State. They're a 6-point favorite. If they win that game, the reason it's so important is because Jacksonville State will then not only clinch the conference championship game, they will clinch the number 1 overall seed, and they're hosting the conference championship game. Why that's important? Because their last game they play Western Kentucky, and that game would then be meaningless to them. Not saying they wouldn't try to win it or anything, but it would be much less important to them than the following week's game. And Western Kentucky would need, Sam Houston State would probably need Western Kentucky to lose that game, as would Liberty, if Jacksonville State were to win against Sam. I know if Jacksonville State and Western Kentucky win this week, it's set, no matter what happens. Now, if Sam or Liberty pulls an upset, now it gets real interesting because Sam then gets to host Liberty that final game, and I would say, honestly, that's of these 4 teams, the way these teams have looked lately, Liberty's the worst of the 4. And so if Sam can pull the upset this week that we're rooting for, then I think they have a very, very good shot of beating Liberty. And if they do that, they could very well be hosting this game. It's possible. They could host this game.
Yeah. When you look at Jacksonville State, they beat Louisiana Tech, which they should have lost the game. They won it on a Hail Mary, missed extra point, won it an OT, wild game. It was very Maction-esque, and then beat FIU by 3 this week, and they let FIU score 31 points on them. So it's like, and FIU, if you saw that Sam Houston State game, Sam's defense absolutely shut them down. I think Sam Houston, I think they're going to pull the upset this week. I think they beat Jacksonville State, and then it comes down to that Liberty game. And like you said it, Liberty is not the Liberty of what we're used to. I mean, they've kind of rolled the last few years. But Slater, whatever?
Yep.
He's
Salter maybe?
Salter, yeah.
Something like that.
I mean, they were a 35-yard field goal away from losing to the UMass Minutemen. With Larry David, you'll have to put that up there.
Oh, I forgot.
Larry,
that was
you took
be
a picture.
Best thing I saw this week.
Oh yeah, you took a picture of it. Larry David in the background, the Minutemen trying to distract them. But yeah, they anyway, they have not looked very good this year. I would be shocked if they. Honestly, I'd be shocked if they beat Western Kentucky and Sam back to back.
I'd be shocked if they honestly won either game.
Yeah,
really
they would have to play way better than what they've been playing.
I'm shocked at the line with Western Kentucky. I know Western Kentucky hasn't played great. They lost to Louisiana Tech last week, which is why this scenario is happening. But yeah, I was surprised that line was 1. I get it. It's in Liberty. Is that correct?
Yeah,
that's why I get it. Liberty won the conference last year. They're the defending champs. They have the championship DNA.
Vegas gives them a lot of respect.
A lot of respect. If you watch them play early in the year, which I did, and you did, there's a lot of games that they could have lost early in the year. Like they were undefeated before they had that big loss to Kennesaw State, but they could have lost. They should have lost to East Carolina. They were down 17-0 in that game in like a 5-hour weather delay and came back and won the game in the second half. It was a lot of fortunate things went their way for Liberty. So interesting to see how this plays out. We're going to be rooting for Sam, obviously, on Saturday. They're catching 6. They're a live dog, of course. Tease them. We might come back to them later. But interesting how Conference USA plays out.
Yep.
Keep an eye on that stuff.
All these conferences are pretty juicy at the end.
The last 2 I'm not going to mention because it's too much. There's like 9 teams in the MAC and the Sun Belt, and nobody cares about the MAC or
Bowling Green's winning the MAC. You heard it here first.
Can they win it? I'm sure they can. There's so many teams that can win it. I don't even know.
I think when I was scrolling, it said they were 6-1 in the MAC or something like that.
Let's see. I'm just looking up the conference standings. So Sun Belt right now, it looks like it ended today, it would be Marshall and Louisiana Lafayette. Or just is Louisiana Lafayette the same thing as Louisiana? Yeah,
yep.
Yeah. Louisiana Cajun, Raging Cajun. And then the other one would be the MAC would be. Let's see, I'm just looking it up right here. In first place is Miami. Oh, there's three teams. Look at your Bowling Green Falcons 5-1, Ohio Bobcats 5-1, Miami Redhawks 6-1. So that's a big ending to the MAC. So we're not going to go into that, but keep an eye on those conferences. Fun way to end college football here. Sad that there's only 2 weeks left of regular season, but excited to see how it all plays out. Going to be a lot of chaos.
Bowl season will be more fun now that we have the playoffs.
Absolutely. And by the way, if you're tuning into the show, we may I think Michelle's coming back on next week. Not 100%.
Oh,
but
cool.
I'm in talking with her. I think she's going to come on for Rivalry Week, and I have my buddy Reed's going to come on here soon as well. Okay, we're going to dive into some big game breakdowns here. Let's talk about. Let's go with the big game, even though I get it. It's the big spread, but it's the biggest game of the week, technically. Indiana traveling to Columbus, Ohio to take on the Buckeyes. Look, we know that Indiana hasn't played anybody. We mentioned it earlier on the show, 106 strength of schedule in the country. But look, it's hard to be undefeated regardless. They're 10-0. Ohio State is 9-1. The winner of this game, essentially, it's a de facto Big Ten semifinal. The winner will go to the Big Ten championship game, barring some weird things happening. Ohio State opened as an 11.5-point favorite, and we have seen one-way action on the Buckeyes. It has been bet up to 13.5. I wouldn't be shocked to see it go through the 14. We've seen a lot of support for Ohio State in the market, meaning professional bettors like the Buckeyes, even at that big number. I'm interested to see if Indiana is a public dog here or if we see just one-way public action on Ohio State as well on game day. Indiana's plus 380 on the money line. Okay, I guess my question to you to start this is, do you think, I know you think Ohio State's probably going to win this.
Yep.
Do you think this is another Notre Dame Navy type game where we come into this, we kind of know in the back of our minds that Ohio State's the better team. We kind of thought the same thing when Notre Dame played Navy, but the Navy was undefeated, just like Indiana is, hadn't played anybody, and then they just got their doors blown off 5 minutes in, you knew the game was over. Is that what's going to happen here, or will Indiana actually put up a fight?
I think they're going to put up a fight. I don't think they're as good as Ohio State, but I think they put up a fight. If I had to, my official guess is, I'm going to say the Buckeyes win it by 17. I think it's fair. It's going to end fairly close to that number. And it could be Ohio State up 24 and then Indiana score. I mean, I don't know, but I just think it's going to end up in that ballpark, anywhere from 14 to 17 where the number is. I don't think, and I know the roster is crazy, they're just not quite as dominant in my opinion in years past with, I like other quarterbacks at Ohio State, whether it was Stroud or it was who was before Stroud? I always forget. That was good too.
Oh, JT Barrett for a while.
Well, yeah, it was Stroud,
Cardell Jones.
and then all
I'm
those
trying
guys.
to think of the other guys who were for him.
Yeah, I mean I know they had McCord last year, obviously, which wasn't, but yeah, they always have decent quarterbacks. Will Howard Justin Fields. That's who I was thinking of.
I was like, what am I thinking?
We went from Fields to Stroud, and obviously
we went
those
way
guys.
back 10 years after that.
Yeah,
I went 10
you
years
went
back.
You went way back, homie. I thought you were going to mention Troy Smith there for a second, but yeah, think Ohio State by 17. Indiana just hadn't played anybody. Give them credit for being undefeated up in this point. Like you said, that's a hard thing to do. Ohio State just has too much talent. I think Ohio State by, I'll say 17. I still think you'll see Indiana get in the playoff. I think they're going to put them in.
At 17, if they lose by 17. Yeah. I kind of think the same thing. I think it's going to start off close. Ohio State doesn't jump on anybody.
Yeah, they've gotten off to very slow starts.
Slow starts. And I will say this. This is I was trying to make an argument I was like, how do I make an argument for Indiana here? If I was trying to back Indiana. And the argument would be that Ohio State starts slow against everybody, right? They played a really, really bad Nebraska team at home. And this wasn't back when Nebraska was playing good. This was in the midst of their shit run, which is ongoing. And Nebraska had a drive to win the game at the end of the game.
Yep.
It had a drive to win the game in Columbus. And if that happens, we're not even talking about Ohio State as a playoff team right now, unless they get in the Big Ten championship game, right? So I think that's your argument. If you're an Indiana fan and you're hoping something, your hope is that Ohio State does what they normally do under Ryan Day, especially this year. They start slow, they get in a hole, and then Indiana just has to find a way to just grind out stops. Because if you get this late, if you get this into the third quarter and it's a game, I don't think in terms of, now, look, hat for hat, talent-wise, huge disparity. But from just the quarterback position, you could make an argument that Curtis Rourke is better than Will Howard.
For sure.
So my point is, if you get to the fourth quarter in a game where we know that the one position that is above all else is a guy, a quarterback, the quarterback position where they could make or break a game, and Curtis Rourke is dealing and dialed in, and Will Howard is not playing well, you never know, right? So I'm not saying this wouldn't be Appalachian State, Michigan type upset.
Oh, no.
But just from, I think the reason the line is that way and the reason professionals are taking Ohio State and the reason I'm picking Ohio State, I'm going to say they're going to win by 14, is because of the talent disparity across the board. It's just, when you look at it, it's a $30 million roster full of 4 and 5 stars versus pieced together roster by a really good head coach. Cool. The other argument would be also that Kirk Cignetti's a much better coach than Ryan Day, and I believe that he is.
I would rather have him as a coach. Ohio State loses, they're still in?
It's a good question. I was going to ask
that. Was Russillo was getting into that too the other day. I heard him, and I didn't actually hear the reply, but I'll tell you this: if Ohio State loses a close game to Indiana, they're going to get in regardless.
I'll tell you this: I 100% agree.
Not to say they deserve to,
exactly,
but they're getting in.
Two separate questions: will they get in? Yes. Should they get in? No. Because their argument for the committee is easy. It's Indiana's number 5, which would be
if they win this game, they're going to go to number 3.
Exactly.
And they lost to Oregon, who's
so they
number
lost
1.
to 1 and 3. How do you leave them out? And you can't. But the reality is they're only 1, 3, and 1, 2, and 5 right now. because they've only played each other. Like, they don't play any. That's my problem with the Big Ten is, like, they didn't play anybody in the non-conference. The only non-conference game scheduled by any of these teams against an actual, like, competitive possible playoff team was Oregon against Boise State. It was in Oregon, in Autzen, at night, and Boise State should have won the game. Oregon needed 2 kickoff returns for touchdowns to win the game on a walk-off field goal. So you look at, that's the only barometer we have of these teams, these good Big Ten teams playing outside the conference. That's I think what a lot of people take issue with, them being 1, 2, 4, 5. Okay, so we both picked, you say 17, I say 14. Let's move on to the Big 12. We already talked about the implications. We'll start with the big kind of marquee game, which is, in terms of the team, which is Colorado. Colorado is traveling to Kansas to take on the Jayhawks. The Jayhawks were, when they started the year, they were ranked 22nd in the country. Okay, they won their first game against Lindenwood, and then they dropped 5 consecutive games. But I guess they had some sort of an epiphany midseason, because since that 5th loss, they're 3-1. And they're playing much better ball. And they have a chance to actually do something really unique historically, because this never has happened before. I'm sorry, it's happened one time before. It actually happened last year with Arizona. For an unranked team to beat a ranked team 3 consecutive weeks. That's only happened once ever before. And they beat Iowa State at home. They went on the road and did the impossible. Went to Provo at night.
Beat the Mormons at night. Can't do it.
Flip the Mormon magic on its head, and then they're going to have a chance to beat Colorado.
And funny enough, they should have beat K-State at K-State.
Absolutely, they should have beat K-State.
So that would have been going for 4 in a row.
Yep.
They rolled Houston. Should have won that game at Arizona State as well. Arizona State had a drive to beat them. They've lost a lot of close games.
Yep.
Like I said, this is Kansas's. This really is their Super Bowl at this point.
And they have to win to stay bowl eligible.
Yep. And I think, you know what? I'm going to say they're going to do it. I think they're going to win this game, and I think they're going to win at Baylor. I think they're going to get themselves bowl eligible.
I think they are too.
They're playing good ball. They're going to beat. I think this is a back and forth game. I think it's decided by less than a touchdown either way, but I'll even go like a field goal either way. It's going to come down to the wire. Okay. Colorado and Kansas. I don't think either team's going to blow out the other team. Colorado obviously has the firepower on offense. Kansas's defense has been playing
really well.
Yeah, I mean, they played well against BYU anyway, that's for sure. Played pretty good against Kansas State. Iowa State.
Yeah,
but that was BS. Numbers, yeah, that was all late. That was late. They were killing Iowa State.
Exactly.
Yeah, so I'm going to say Kansas by 3.
I like the prediction. I'm definitely picking Kansas as well. I've been saying this for weeks that I thought this was a spot they lose for sure. I was hoping they lost before this, but 2 weeks ago when I saw this matchup, I was like, oh, this is going to be a tough spot for them. And it is. They obviously know, this is where they really feel the expectations, right?
Yeah.
Like, okay, we're going on the road against a good team. We have to win or we're in trouble. And I'll give you one key matchup, 2 key matchups, okay? 2 key matchups to look at. Kansas's secondary is very underrated. All right. They're really, really good against the pass. Last week at BYU, really, really tough place to play. Held Jake Retzlaff to 18 for 28 for under 200 yards passing and an interception. All right. They had a phenomenal goal line stand at the end of the game where they're up 17-13. It was 1st and 10 from like the 14-yard line or 13-yard line. They actually got inside the 10, and Kansas holds them out of the end zone, gets a stop to win the game. I think when you look at who Colorado's played, all their road tests they've played teams who are really bad against the pass. They went to Texas Tech and played a horrific secondary and really struggled for a lot of that game. Got down 13-0, made a comeback. Obviously, the final score looks like they won by 14, but Tech had the ball driving to tie the game in the final series. So I think that the fact, when you look at this secondary, it's the first time they actually have to go up against a defense who can cover some of their receivers. A lot of times that bails them out. Oh, they get down, we can just chunk it around the yard. Everybody knows Colorado can't run the ball, okay? But they're now playing a team who can actually stop the one thing that they do well. Okay, that's matchup number 1. Matchup number 2 is Jalen Daniels. Jalen Daniels looked horrific the first half of the season, okay? In the last 3 games, he's played much, much better. In fact, over the last 4 games since they've been 3-1, 10 total touchdowns, 1 turnover. That's the reason they're winning the game.
And I'm looking at the stats, too. He's also throwing the ball a lot less, which is a recipe for success with them. They need to run the ball with Neal. Yeah.
Right.
They're running the ball with Neal. Against Iowa State, he had 18 for 116, 2 touchdowns. Against Houston, when they won that game, 17, 108, 2 touchdowns.
Yep.
And then all their losses that they have, he's only got it 13, 14 times, and they just didn't run it very well.
Yep. And I think this is a good spot for Kansas. like you said, had they won against BYU last week and not had a chance to be bowl eligible, this might be a tougher letdown spot.
Yeah.
But when you've lost 6 games on the year and you have a goal to look forward to, we need to win to stay bowl eligible or we're done. This matters to them, right? And this is, I believe, their last home game. So it's senior night too, and it's everything going for Kansas here. I think they're going to do it. I think they're going to bowl the third straight upset and win it outright. I'm actually going to say I agree it's close, but I think Kansas, weird number. I think they're going to win by 8. I think they're going to win the game by 8. I think Colorado will have a drive late to try to tie it, but they will come up short. BYU traveling to Arizona State in the Big 12. Do you want to touch on this one? I can't remember if I said this one or not.
Yeah, we can touch on a little bit.
So quickly, BYU at Arizona State. Arizona State's a 3-point favorite. Total in the game 48.5.
Oh, Arizona State's favored by 3? Well, they're going to win the game.
You think they're going to win?
Yeah. BYU's I think they've run out of magic.
Is it one of those deals where
you finally lose?
Right.
You've been winning all these games close. And Arizona State, really just at the end of the game, it got close. We kind of got a little conservative, and K-State came back, but they really controlled that game. And I don't know. In Tempe, I just think they're going to end up beating BYU, especially with BYU coming off that loss. You feel unbeatable, and then when you finally lose and you realize you are human and you can lose, usually bad things happen after that one. So anyway, I like Scatabo.
He's going to have CTE when he's 21.
Bro.
Every
time he runs the ball, he shakes his like that. I'm like, oh, my God, dude. That guy plays hard. I'd want him as my running back, but I feel bad for the poor bastard. I hope the CTE doesn't hit him. If it does, I'm sure our boy Antonio Brown at CTE ESPN will welcome him with open arms.
Well, has he been cracker of the week yet?
No, but we should send that to AB of him shaking his head and say, "Welcome to CTE Cracker of the Week."
I love it. I'm trying to find the name of the running back that Big Cat had in NCAA football. When Coach Doug was at LSU and finally got his championship. It was a white running back, and he had this very generic, funny name, and that was legitimately what I think about every single time I see. Almost every single time I see Scatterby, I think about that dude. Okay. I agree with you, though. I think Arizona State wins this. I also would add one thing. I think there's a big coaching mismatch here. I'm a big Kenny Dillingham guy. They've been shorted scholarships over the last couple of years. The fact that they are ranked and have a shot to go, dude. They legitimately. This is crazy. They control their own destiny to go to the college football playoff. Right. Because if they win out, they go to the Big 12 title game. And if they win the Big 12 title game, they are in the playoff. That's how crazy this is.
And it could easily happen.
It could very easily happen. They're favored this week. They're going to be favored next week. And, whoever they play in the title game, I would argue if it's Colorado or BYU, they're pick 'em. Iowa State, maybe they're a short dog.
Yeah, they'd be a short dog against Iowa State.
But that's the only team, right? And so they legitimately they could be a favorite to a pick 'em in every single game getting there. So I think Dillingham's awesome.
Yeah, no, I think I'd take it a step further. I think and I kind of thought, last year when he was doing well and turning things around with people talking about how they have no talent, like you said, he does more with less than anybody in the country. If I was Arizona State, I would lock him up to a long-term deal, pay him what he wants, because there's going to be bigger programs coming knocking real soon.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Make sure to put a hefty buyout on that. And if I was him, the thing about it is, with this bye now for being a conference champion, Arizona State's really not a bad place to be.
Oh, it's really not.
Because it's a real easy place to recruit kids. It's real easy to be like, you want to come here, buddy, trust me. And once you get the normal amount of scholarships, I'm sure they have a decent amount of NIL money. It's not a bad place to be at all. So as long as he's getting a fair salary, like what he should be being paid, then if I were him, I don't even think I would leave, because you're going to be leaving for, now, of course, if it's like a crazy job, you have to, but any other slight upgrade, I'm staying at Arizona State. It's a pretty good spot to be in, because there's, if you have that 1 year where you're 5-5, 6-6, people aren't looking to
Right.
get rid of you.
They remember the good times. Leaving Washington.
They remember the good times.
Right,
yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, they remember the good times at Arizona
Much
State.
more appreciative if you're losing.
Yeah,
I agree.
Yeah.
Arizona State was not bad like about 10 years back. Like they were
No.
very
They were
good for a little while,
yeah.
and I agree with you 100%. Look how bad.
Listen, bro, Brock Osweiler.
Hey, Brock, big Brock guy, aren't you? Right, you're a big Brock guy.
Big Brock.
That's
guy.
what I thought. Yeah,
big Brock guy.
Big Brock guy.
Me and Big Dog.
He's in the booth now. Oh yeah, Big Dog. That's probably one of his quarterbacks he picked.
He picks them all.
Yeah, he does. He picks them all, and then win, lose, or draw, he gets to say that he picked them. And they play in the NFL.
They play in the
NFL.
I said they would play in the NFL.
Well, he's a third overall pick.
Championship.
That's right, championship. Okay, let's go. Let's go to the SEC real quick, and we'll go to. There's not a lot of good SEC games this week.
Yeah, I got a lot of the semi buys against the
Mercers.
A&M was on theirs last week. Yeah. New Mexico State Aggies.
Ole Miss traveling to Gainesville.
Yep.
Florida is trying to get bowl eligible. They won. They pulled off the upset last week against LSU, basically ending any chance of LSU making a conference.
The line on this game is 10.5.
10.5. And
Shit.
I actually saw it get bet up and then come back down. But Florida currently sits 5-5. You would think that even with a loss here, let me refresh. Let me rewind here, okay? Even with the loss here, they will be bowl eligible because their final game is against Florida State. So either way, by winning last week at LSU, they will be bowl eligible. Now, imagine a scenario where Billy Napier, back whatever it was, week 3, and they had gotten the doors blown off by Miami week 1 as a 3-point underdog, lose to A&M by 2 touchdowns, they're looking tied with Mississippi State at halftime after they looked horrible, and everybody's talking about him getting fired, and now they have a legitimate chance if they pull this upset at home to have a winning season. Going into the season, they had the toughest schedule in the country. Number 1 toughest strength of schedule. Now, it ended up not being quite as tough, but, look at their last at Tennessee, versus Kentucky, versus Georgia, at Texas, versus LSU, versus Ole Miss. It's brutal, and so this is a tough spot for Ole Miss. They're coming off, I believe, is it a bye? Yeah, they beat Georgia and then had a bye week. So they had a whole week to celebrate that win. What?
Who was the night game in the SEC? Why is this at 11 o'clock? I'm looking at the video here, and it says Feinbaum says Ole Miss fortunate not that it's not a night game in Gainesville.
Well, it should be a night game. The night game is A&M Auburn.
Oh, yeah, that's stupid.
This one Alabama, Oklahoma, both of them.
Oh, yeah, this one should have been the night game.
The night game on ABC
but apparently,
is Alabama OU.
You know why it probably isn't the night game? It's because Kiffin would have been fucking irate because he thought he should have. Yeah, he goes, it's almost like fair in the sense that it's like
it's fair to Ole Miss. How do you not give them a night game and then say, hey, by the way, we know you're 9-2. And you're 1 game away, really, from going.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, no.
Go play at night in Gainesville, because I'm telling you,
well, it would be very
that stadium at 11 versus that stadium at 7 p.m. are 2 totally different.
Yeah, and it's very counterintuitive for the conference too. Like, why would they do it?
Yeah, why would you
be like, oh yeah,
there?
we want them to go lose to Florida? We don't want that at all. We want a chance to get as many teams in the playoff as we can.
Have you been watching the Big 12 and the ACC try to punt BYU and Miami into the playoffs?
BYU is just a good football team.
They are?
You just need to get that. You need to picked against them this week. You need to get that through your thick skull, okay? Whatever his name is, Sataki, whatever.
By the way, as we're going through this,
shout out whatever your name is.
It's Kalani Sataki.
He
sucks. And you know who else sucks?
Kalani Sataki's a G.
You know who else sucks?
Kick your ass. What?
You know who else sucks?
Who?
It's November 20th, and that means Mike Tomlin has now gone 2,866 days without winning a playoff game.
And he's gone every day of his life of being a head coach, of never having a losing season.
That makes 2 of us, doesn't it? Okay.
Here's the deal. Ole Miss is a much better team, obviously. I just think that coming off that win in Georgia, winning by, 18, and then coming here for an early game. Florida's fresh off that win. I know we think Florida State's a foregone conclusion, but they're trying to get bowl eligible. I think this is the game ultimately Ole Miss wins, which I'm praying they do, because I think I picked them to win the national championship, or I don't know what I picked them to do. I picked them to go far this season, but
yeah.
it's hard to trust them because they found a way to lose close games. But I'm going to say Ole Miss wins this by 7. But I don't think it's by more than 10.5. I just don't think I know they're playing good ball. I know they went in and rolled Arkansas. I just don't see them going into Florida and just absolutely rolling them.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough. I'm actually gonna say that Ole Miss is gonna cover this number, and this isn't a best bet by any means. I'm just saying I think the score is gonna be somewhere around I don't know, 30-16, right? 28-14, something in that realm. I just think that Florida got that win last week. It was a huge win, and they know they've got Florida State that last week. Like, Billy Napier kind of knows, like, he is going to be bowl eligible. Lagway was good last week for sure. It's at home. It's not an easy spot for Ole Miss, but I like that it's at 11 a.m. I think if this game was directly after the Georgia game, I would take Florida 100%. The bye might help.
Oh, they had a bye.
Bit.
Yeah.
So I think you've already lost. Here's the thing about Ole Miss. They've already lost to 2 teams they shouldn't have lost to, right? Like, they didn't lose. They lost to Kentucky and to LSU. Now, LSU was at night, but they were the favorite in both those games. You would think, like, we're going on the road to Gainesville. They just beat LSU.
We have to win.
Right. Like, you'd think they're going to get their best effort here.
You would definitely think so. And they definitely might cover it. But, yeah, to me, it's a coin toss either way on the cover. I'm just going to say Florida. Their defense played pretty good against LSU. I'm going to say they keep it fairly close.
Okay.
Now, question for you. How many points was Ole Miss favored by against LSU?
I believe, so it was, I know this, it was 3.5, but then Trey Harris, their best wide receiver, I believe, or I'm sorry, it was 3. Their best wide receiver got ruled in, and he went up to 3.5.
And they were playing that game at home, correct?
No, that was at LSU. It was under the lights at LSU.
Okay, but they're winning. Okay, that makes more sense.
They were 3.
Because I'm wondering, like, how did we get from 3.5 to 10.5? But that makes more sense.
Yeah,
I didn't realize that game was that. I remember that game being the spread being that close, and I was like, wasn't that game at Ole Miss? But no, okay, LSU came back.
LSU. Yeah, that's how they came back. It was like, how do you? Because the under the lights magic
makes sense
at Tiger Stadium.
That answers my question.
There's a couple games we didn't touch on. We'll get to them as we're going through these games.
Yeah, let's just run through them here.
Okay, so let's go. Again, we'll pick some of these that aren't great games, but for our pick 'em. By the way, I believe you have now tied me in the NFL, and I am within 1 point of you in college football. So we're almost through 13 weeks, and we're almost dead even in both.
That's funny.
Very, very fun ending to this kind of game for us too. All right, Thursday night special. NC State traveling to Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech already bowl eligible. NC State trying to get bowl eligible. 5-5. Georgia Tech's an 8.5 point favorite. I'm taking Georgia Tech.
Sorry, I'm just getting the games up here. Yeah, I'm gonna go Georgia Tech as well.
Okay. Let's see. Friday night, we've got we're not gonna pick Purdue, Michigan State. Okay, UNLV traveling to San Jose State. This game does have implications for the Mountain West Championship game. UNLV must win. They're 7.5.
Man,
I'm taking UNLV. Thought about it, but.
I'm going to be boring here and go with UNLV. I just think they're too good for San Jose State.
They are.
And at San Jose State, the way that was their Super Bowl against Boise, I think that, I don't know. They're already bowl eligible. I'll go UNLV. They're just playing for so much more.
I agree. Okay, Saturday. I have it at the top here, so we'll just pick it because it's Texas, Kentucky, even though it's at 2:30. Texas, 20.5 point favorite. I'm picking my Longhorns, of course.
Yeah, both Texas.
All right. Now we'll go to the 11 a.m. kicks. Indiana, number 5, traveling to Ohio State. We already picked this on the big game breakdown. Both taking the Buckeyes. All right, so we both got the Horns, and we both got the Buckeyes. Okay, we're going to go Wake Forest at Miami. Oh, we already said that one. Or we're not picking that one.
Yeah, no, 24.
Ole Miss at Florida.
We're both taking Ole Miss.
Both taking Ole Miss.
Oh, baby, here's a game.
SMU at Virginia.
SMU.
SMU for me. Yeah, here's the game you're talking about, and you know where I'm going with this. Illinois traveling to Piscataway.
I'll let you have Rutgers. I'll ride with Bielema.
I know. How dare you pick against Rutgers? Because you know what? It's hard to win in Piscataway, let me tell you. All right? And I told you this 2 weeks ago, and you were wrong. And I told you it 3 weeks ago. And every time you pick against my Rutgers Scarlet Knights, they come through for me in the clutch. And they're going to do it again here. Brett Bielema, I love you, but you're going down Saturday morning. Give me Rutgers 6-4 to 7-4.
They're already bowl eligible. That's good. Yeah, I want Illinois.
Okay.
I don't have
to win in Piscataway.
don't have a good feeling about that one, but I'm riding with Illinois. I've rode with them all year.
I like it. Maryland at home against Iowa.
Take Iowa in that one. Take Maryland. Get yourself some bonus points.
I don't like Maryland. I hate Maryland, so I don't want to root for them. I'll take Iowa as well. This is actually interesting. UConn at Syracuse. They're both 7-3. How about the job Jim Moore has done with Syracuse? With UConn. 7-3 UConn.
You know what? This is UConn's Super Bowl. I'm going for the bonus points. I'm taking UConn in the game.
I was gonna do that. Here's the thing too about this game, is I have Syracuse win total under. And they got Miami the last game, and they have to lose. Like, they have to lose this game. So if they lose this game, I win. If they win this game, I lose. Like, this is the winner make or break. It's 7.5. So I want to pick UConn, but I'll let you have them for sake of entertainment purposes. But I'll be so happy if you get the bonus points. Okay. So give me Syracuse, but I'm rooting for UConn. All right, North Carolina at Boston College. North Carolina's a 3-point favorite on the road.
And they've been playing good.
They're 6-4. I guess they're playing Mac. How dare you? Are they? Mac Brown always rights the ship.
Man, they're just squeaking by some bad teams. They beat Wake Forest by 7. Oh, actually, they beat Virginia, the shit out of Virginia. They beat the worst team in football, Florida State, pretty bad. Man.
I'll even take the opposite here. Just for
fun. You know what? I'm going to go, BC. I'm going to take Boston College.
I would, if I had to pick this, I would take BC, but I'll just take UNC.
I'll go Boston College at home.
Okay. We both took Sam Houston. Already picked that one.
Boston College is 5-5, so I like that.
Let's see. Michigan, Tennessee, and Georgia playing.
Western Kentucky, Liberty.
Yeah, we got to pick that one because we talked about Conference USA.
I'm going to go Western Kentucky.
I am too, and I would normally pick the opposite, but I just don't think they're going to win that game.
Yeah. Understood. I don't either.
I just don't think Liberty is great. Dude, I almost feel compelled to pick this game. Florida State at home against Charleston Southern. 1-9 Florida State versus 1-10 Charleston Southern. How funny is that?
By that game. Where is it?
It might not even be showing. It's right after Western Kentucky.
Oh, there
Liberty.
It is. Yeah, there's no.
I'm gonna screenshot this because it's like that's such a beautiful little bot. Like, who would have ever thought that would be real?
That's funny.
I'll take Florida State.
Me too.
I got you to do it. You picked the Seminoles.
I can't believe we just picked that game.
Why not? They're even. It's even teams. There's not even a line on that game. I'm skipping through here a lot of these games. Arizona at TCU at 2:00.
I'll take TCU.
I'll take TCU as well. I didn't see they're a pretty big favorite. I guess Arizona's just garbage this year.
Yep.
Okay, let's see. Scrolling through here. Here we go. Here's the one I'm going to take. I'll get ahead of you here. And I already told you this. Penn State traveling to Minnesota. I'm only technically getting
the double,
not the triple at 12.5. But I still think Minnesota at home pulls the upset here. This is just a classic James Franklin choke job spot right here. Like, Penn State, nobody even thinks twice about this game. Of course, they're going to beat Minnesota. And, that place, Huntington Bank Stadium, is going to be rocking. They actually have a pretty good home field advantage. It's a weird place to play. It's kind of like dark in that stadium.
Yeah.
I think Minnesota wins this game.
I think they certainly could. For entertainment purposes, I'll take the other side, though. I'll go Penn State.
Okay, I got Minnesota with my bonus. We both picked Arizona State over BYU as already, correct?
Yep.
We're both taking Arizona State.
Mm-hmm.
I'm shocked you picked against your Mormons. I'm taking Kansas. Are you officially taking Kansas here on the Pick 'em show?
Yes.
Okay. I didn't know if you wanted to try to reverse jinx Colorado. We tried it last week. It didn't work. Northwestern at Michigan. If Michigan loses this game, they will miss a bowl game a year after winning the national title.
I think Michigan's going to win that game.
I'll pick Michigan in honor of Michelle. Otherwise, I would be picking Northwestern to pull that upset. Slobberknocker game of the week. Wisconsin at Nebraska. It's a 2.5 point
I'll
spread.
let you pick this one since you let me pick that BC UNC game.
I'm just gonna pick. I'm just gonna pick Wisconsin, even though it's a coin flip.
Yeah.
Nebraska's just been so bad. I'll take Wisconsin.
We're going Nebraska.
Okay, we'll go to
Look at that one. Texas Tech, Oklahoma State.
Dude.
Line's 3.5.
Oh, man, that is such a trappy. You know what?
Oklahoma State has been.
I can't do it because I want to pick them next week against. If they win this game, next week won't be as big for them, right? Trying to not be winless.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm going to take Texas Tech just because Oklahoma State hasn't showed me they can get over the line. And
Have they been even close lately? Oh, man, they lost at TCU by 25. They've lost at home versus Arizona State by 21. They've lost their last 3 games by double digits. Oh, man, they haven't won a home game since Arkansas, and they should have lost that game. Okay, I'll take Tech. They're just too ugly. That's such a Dylan pick to take Oklahoma State, but I can't do it. All right, UCF at West Virginia. I've been wrong on West Virginia every game until last week.
Every time I pick either one of these teams, I lose. So I'll let you pick.
I'll
take the opposite. Good luck figuring that out.
Give me UCF.
Yeah, that's probably the right side.
I've been just as wrong on these as you have. You got West Virginia. Okay. San Diego. Oh, man, no, I'll skip that one. I mean, I don't know. Sorry.
I was gonna take Utah State in that bad boy.
Pittsburgh at Louisville.
I'm gonna scroll here. I'm gonna take. Here you go ahead.
No, you got it. I'm gonna take Louisville.
I'm gonna take Louisville as well.
I was just gonna say last week Stanford did the Lord's work for me, and they took out Louisville to clinch my win total because Louisville had to lose one of the last 3, and I didn't think they were gonna do it after they upset Clemson, but Stanford was down 14, and we weren't even watching the game. You're like, dude, Stanford just tied the game.
I just saw it on the bottom. Yeah,
and we turned it on, and they got the ball. I'm like, oh my gosh, the kid made like a 53-yard field goal as time expired. Okay, yeah. So Louisville for both of us. Here we go. Missouri at Mississippi State.
I'm gonna go for the double bonus. I'm gonna go or the bonus, whatever, the 2 points. I'm going Mississippi State. Bad spot for Missouri coming off that loss.
Oh, I forgot this. What?
Season-ending blow.
We skipped by. I guess we'll just do it at the end. We skipped by your double digit or your
we'll
dog
talk
of
about
the
it
week.
at the end. That's
okay.
fine.
Because I was thinking it was that one, but I forgot you decided to change it. Okay, I'll take Missouri, but I like the pick. You got the bonus points. Here we go. Army Notre Dame.
Notre Dame.
I did it last time and took Navy for the double bonus points, but I can't do it. Give me Notre Dame by a lot. Boise, Wyoming. We're not picking. Baylor at Houston.
I'm going to take Baylor.
I will as well. Oklahoma at home against Bama.
Alabama.
Me too. A&M at Auburn. I will take the Auburn Tigers to pull the upset in Jordan-Hare Stadium.
I'll take A&M in a tight one. Don't think that's going to be a blowout either way.
You can have the cross-dresser Mike Elko all you want.
Cross-dresser.
He wears women's clothes. So you can just tell.
Your father just started screaming that one day. That was interesting.
Give me Auburn and Hugh Freeze smoking cigarettes on the sideline.
What a great guy.
Yeah, he's a class act. Iowa State at Utah.
Iowa State for
me. Here we go. Vandy at LSU. LSU's a 7.5-point favorite. Every time Vandy's a dog, I take them. I don't know if I can do it here under the lights. You know what? Screw it. Why not? For entertainment.
Go for the double bonus.
Give me Vandy. Give me the Commodores. My Commodores. And I jump on the bandwagon fully and ride into the sunset.
You can't. Dude, Bailey said
not allowed to.
You're not allowed on the bandwagon.
Not allowed. You guys can't jump on the bandwagon.
I'll take LSU.
Too late. Too late. Okay.
It's too late, man. You can't get on.
All right. Virginia Tech at Duke.
Virginia Tech still trying to get bowl eligible. I'm going to take Virginia Tech.
Oh, they're 3-point favorites on the road here. I'll take Duke. Seems like a trappy line, but I like Manny Diaz better than dumbass over at Virginia Tech.
Oh, both those guys are really bad.
They are, but Manny Diaz has at least done a good job with this group this group at Duke. Cincy at Kansas State.
Go Kansas State.
USC at UCLA. UCLA
I wish
I
could get bonus points on this one.
You taking UCLA anyway?
Yeah, I'll take them anyway. Fuck it.
I'll take USC.
USC sucks.
I hate both these teams. They both suck. Okay, and then we'll go Air Force at Nevada. We'll skip, but Colorado State at Fresno State. Big Mountain West championship implications here.
Golly, 5-0 in Mountain West, right? They've been rolling. You weren't lying.
I'll take Fresno. I think they pulled the upset. Although I'm rooting for Colorado State.
Man, they just kind of squeaked by bad. I'm going to go Fresno State, too, man. I don't like Colorado State.
I thought you were going to do Colorado State for sure.
Nah.
Okay. Are you sure you want to take Fresno State? Remember, I saved you last time. The quarterback for Fresno State is Mikey Keene.
Didn't they win though? Didn't Fresno State win?
No, they lost that game.
Yeah, Mikey Keene sucks, but Colorado State being 5-0 is nuts. I think they just lose. They run out of luck and lose that game against Fresno State.
That game we were talking about was UNLV.
Oh yeah,
and they were like a 3-point underdog and lost by 45.
Yep, remember that one?
Yeah.
That was bad.
That was funny. Okay, let's go ahead. Give me your underdog.
My fake double-digit dog, which is
week. You got another.
Sam Houston
by the way,
State.
You got your big win last week. Again, you're back to 5-4 ATS, and you've hit your. That was your 4th winner, right? Syracuse.
I think it was my 4th winner. Yeah, something like that.
4th outright winner.
That's not bad.
We're up to. I think we're up to +5 full units on just the money line, which is pretty damn good. Sorry.
Oh.
Okay, go ahead. Who's your dog?
Hey guys, you ready to let the dogs out?
What? Do what?
Let the dogs out. You know, like, who let the dogs out? Who?
There we go. It is Sam Houston State. They should be like what +200 probably against Jacksonville State.
Maybe even more.
The 6 points, or maybe not. Maybe not quite that much. I don't know. What does 6 usually give you in college football?
I think no.
I can't
no,
remember.
yeah, that's probably +180 actually.
Yeah, something like that.
Okay, yeah, +180. So you're going Sam Houston State?
Yep. And then my total of the week was that crazy one I told you, which is East Carolina and North Texas over 72.
That's quite a lot of points.
Let me make
there,
sure
sir.
that that's right. I think it's 72.
It is 72. I wrote it down.
Cool.
Are you?
They're going for 90 in that one.
Are you sure you want to go over that number? What
Yeah.
you should do is do a lightning bet on that.
Oh yeah.
$1,000 a point over 72. That should be a
Old
fun
Artie
fun
Lang
night.
special.
And
Yeah.
for every point they go under, you owe $1,000 and you must take a shot. Okay, we're gonna go to my best bets here. I released an official play sheet on Friday afternoon, so that we have them. But I'm gonna go for my best bets here. We're gonna start with Minnesota plus. It's moved. I wrote 13, but now it's 12.5. It's moving all over the place. I'll give it out at 12.5. That's what I see here. Minnesota plus 12.5. They're at home against Penn State. Look, the market disagrees with me on this. This got bet up 2.5 points. I just think this is a bad spot for Penn State. I think we talked about this a little bit before. I think Minnesota is a legit live dog here. It's senior night. They're playing for something. PJ Fleck finds ways to win weird games. They upset USC earlier this year when they were still ranked and playing well. Kind of like we talked about with OU before USC figured out they were bad. Like they're not USC. So I like Minnesota in that one. Give me Minnesota plus 13. I'm gonna go for best bet number 2. I'm gonna go to Notre Dame. Again, this sucks because I wrote this down at 14 and now ESPN bet's showing 15, and that's a big difference there. But I'll just give it out at 15. I think Notre Dame is going to wax Army. I think they're going to beat the living shit out of them. I do not think this will be close. If you
I have that feeling too.
It's like the Navy game. Like it just feels like a spot where they just win by a lot. I think it's still good at 14, 15, 16, 17. So I like Notre Dame in that one. Then we're gonna go kind of off the beaten path for my last one. We're gonna go to Louisiana Monroe. They're catching 3. They're catching 3 in this spot. They're playing Arkansas State. It's on the road. But if you look at the losses that UL Monroe suffered this year, at Texas, they got killed early in the year. Okay? They actually started the year 5-1. But their losses are at Texas, okay? At Auburn, versus Texas State, who is a very good team in the Sun Belt, at Marshall, who's atop the standings in the Sun Belt, and then South Alabama, who's 4-2 in the Sun Belt. So they've only lost to teams who are atop their conference, or they've lost to teams who are Power 5, Auburn, and Texas, right? So they have competed. They've beaten everybody else on their schedule. They also have been sitting on 5 wins since, what was this date? Since they beat Southern Miss back in September, okay? In mid-October. So they've been sitting there for almost 2 months, right? Trying to get bowl eligible. And this is their last shot because the last week of the season they play Louisiana, who's undefeated in the best team, or 5-1 rather, and the best team in the Sun Belt. So they cannot lose this game if they want to be bowl eligible. This one has to be the one that's circled. This is the worst team left. And then when you look at Arkansas State this year, they're 6-4 and they're 4-2 in the conference, but they have just had some very fortunate results. Common opponent these two played. They played Texas State. Arkansas State did. Lost 41-9. okay, got absolutely waxed. They had one game. The one game people look at on the schedule is they played at Michigan earlier this year, and they were getting waxed and scored late to make it a 10-point game. And so it's like, well, they played Michigan kind of close. Well, Michigan's horrible, okay? Michigan couldn't score on anybody, let alone, like, a good defense.
It's true.
So they only had 28 points in that game, but that's a lot for Michigan, okay? So I just think, looking at this, Arkansas State, when you look at the rankings, right, like UL Monroe's 5-5, they're 3-3, and Arkansas State 6-4, 4-2. The reason I have this is my numbers spit this out as my power rankings spit this out as Arkansas State should be a 2-point underdog, and we're catching 3 years. So I'm catching value in a key number. I like Louisiana Monroe. I think they win the game outright and get bowl eligible, but take 3 obviously. And then we'll go for the last one. We're gonna go back to the well with West Virginia on the total. We're gonna go over a West Virginia game because their defense is disgustingly bad.
They're real bad. Yep.
I took a total last week on them, and I was telling you before, I was like, man, I don't like that the market's moving against me here. And you're like, oh, that doesn't matter. And then you're sure as shit it didn't matter. It went over in the first half. Oh, yeah. It went over in the number was, I think it was 58.5, and there were 59 points in the first half. It was ridiculous. There wasn't a point scored in the third quarter, and it went over by 4 touchdowns. So I think West Virginia just likes to get in these shootouts. Their defense has gotten worse while their offense has gotten better.
Yep. And
UCF is really good for some reason at putting up points. Like, their defense is horrific as well, but they, for some reason, despite the fact that they run the ball a ton, they put up a ton of points. And so both teams run the ball, but they both put up a ton of points. I could see this being a shootout early. Like, you could tell in that game with it was, I forget who it was. It was West Virginia and Baylor. And, like, in the first 3 minutes of the game, you're like, oh, this is going to be an absolute shootout. Like, you're going to get that feel of this game, too, I think. I think it's going to be an absolute shootout, and then to go back and forth. So I like the over 63 in Central Florida and West Virginia, and those are my 4 best bets. We are, I believe, now 26-12 on the year, up to 65 or 66%. Turner is 6-1 in his totals. He's now hit 4 moneyline underdogs, so we've been smoking it. We're almost to the end of the season, and we're going to finish with a heck of a record and a heck of a profit for anybody who's been following our plays. So for guys who pick these on, now we've been doing them on a Wednesday for a couple weeks, but we were doing them on Monday for a long time. Pretty darn good. So
not too bad.
If you're new to the channel, like and subscribe. Make sure to comment below who you like, who your picks are, all that good stuff. Also, check out our Patreon. Subscribe for $5 a month to support the channel. Helps us out. Keeps the channel ad-free. All that good stuff. I'll put the link in the description for my website for free
and maybe
sports betting
you said
picks.
Michelle maybe next week.
Michelle will be on, I believe. I'm not going to say 100%, but I would say 90% she's going to be on next week.
We'll get Jeremiah, the celebrity, on. I was thinking for him, since I always mention him on the other show, that maybe he comes on that other show briefly, main podcast, and then we anyway, we can talk about this off air. Then he can do maybe a bowl preview.
I like that. It's a good idea.
And we can keep the bowl standings going.
I like that. That's a good
season.
idea. That's a good idea.
Get Big Dog's bowl. You know, obviously the people at home want his picks.
Of course they want his picks.
These are the best picks.
I don't know. He got a 2-year ban, indefinite suspension from the show. So
it's not true.
That's what happened on this last week.
Big Dog said Big
Dog was threatening me if I did that. But anyway, maybe we'll let him on next week. We'll see. But thank you guys for tuning in. We'll catch you guys next week with everything college football and NFL.